and welcome to another episode of Cricket Hedgehogs. So we are random cricket fans who like to yap about cricket on the internet. Right. So today I have Dinako with me. Hello.
Hi.
We are going to have another ranked episode. Today we are going to rank the biggest World Cup upsets. Now, of course, in this series we are only taking the 50-over World Cup into consideration. So in this we are going to take a look at biggest upsets. Now, upsets as in we are looking into matches where stronger teams lost against weaker teams, right? So like when it comes basically underdogs winning. Now, a couple of things to clarify before starting this. Just because a country is included in this list doesn't mean they are a weaker team anymore, right? I mean, at that time they were considered relatively a weaker team, and it is considered as an upset where it's when it's a shocker, right? Like when everyone it's a given that it's going to be won by this particular team, and surprisingly the other team pulls a win, and we've taken top 10 of these kind of upsets, right? So of course this is again something subjective, right? Like it's up to you to decide whether a team is weak or not, whether a certain team winning can be considered as an upset or not, right? So this is our opinion. So if you have your opinion, of course you are welcome to comment it and let us know if you disagree with us.
Drop a comment.
Drop a comment, of course. Comment section is all yours. All right. So starting off, we are going to pick one of the most famous upsets. 2007, India versus Bangladesh. So India losing to Bangladesh in 2007. Couple of things. First of all, at this time, Bangladesh was relatively a weaker team, right?
Yeah.
And they had never made it past beyond the first group stage. Yes. They started their World Cup debut in 1999, and this was just their third World Cup, and they had only won one match in 1999. One match in I think they lost all the matches in 2003.
Normally, Bangladesh, anyways, during that time was a
it was a bad team, right?
Where everyone in the group
like they think like these are given points. That's how they think. But they started off really well by defeating India. It was like an unexpected punch India took. This was not just another loss to India. This was the match that India got knocked out of the 2007 World Cup, right? So it was an absolute shocker to India, and like that changed Indian cricket completely, right? After this, only that they made MS Dhoni the captain. So many legendary players retired. So this was, I would say, definitely deserves a spot in the top 10 upsets list. Now, of course, when we talk about an upset, it is a bitter memory to the stronger side, and it's a golden memory to the weaker side. Right?
Yes,
so
of course.
To Bangladesh, this is one of their best wins ever, and to India, this is one match to forget. So that's our number 10. So moving on to number 9, then we move to 1999 World Cup. This is when South Africa lost to Zimbabwe. Now, first of all, Zimbabwe was a test-playing nation by this time, just like Bangladesh in the previous one. So one can say that Zimbabwe wasn't that weak at that time, but of course South Africa was flying high. This was the only match South Africa lost in the group stage. They had already defeated India, Sri Lanka, England.
South Africa in this World Cup went on to go to the semi-finals as well, right? They lost the
semi-finals.
It's a different story.
But it was a tie. They tied the semi-final and they got knocked out in the semi-final. And arguably, this was the best team. South Africa was the best team in the tournament, and they deserved to win that World Cup that year. And Zimbabwe pulling an unlikely win against them, that was one of the World Cup upsets as well.
Especially when Sean Pollock and them were playing.
Yes, like Hansi Cronje was the captain, right? Sean Pollock, Alan Donald, Lance Klusener, Jonty Rhodes, Gary Kirsten, Darrell Cullinan. This was arguably
the best South African side that they had.
Arguably the best ODI team at that time in the
late
90s, right? So, and then Zimbabwe winning against them was should be considered as an upset. Then moving on to number 8, another match South Africa is involved in, but this is a much more recent one, 2023, when they lost against Netherlands. South Africa, of course, to be honest, this side was not strong as a 99 side.
Yes, right? But still Netherlands is...
Right? Netherlands were to play qualifiers alongside our country, Sri Lanka, right? Had to play the qualifiers to get selected, and then them pulling a win of South Africa. Again, the South African team made it to the semi-finals.
Exactly.
They gave a real scare to Australia in the semi-finals, right? So, and surprisingly, in this match, South Africa failed to chase down like a relatively a modest target. It wasn't a great target, like 245, right?
Yeah. You can see the lights of Maharaj being the players who have
right?
batted, right?
So, and Netherlands is not necessarily known for their bowling attack, right? So it was definitely an upset, and in the recent time, one of the biggest upsets in the World Cup history.
True.
Right. Now moving on to an older one. This is the oldest pick we chose. This is from 1979 World Cup, and this is when India lost to Sri Lanka. Right? None other than Sri Lanka. Now, of course, Sri Lanka went on to win the World Cup in 1996, right? But 70s was the time that Sri Lanka was still
starting off.
Right? Sri Lanka wasn't even a test playing nation at this point. And them pulling off this win against India was one of the reasons that we got test status in 1982. Right? So that's after this win only that cricket world started taking Sri Lanka a little seriously. I think Duleep Mendis was the hero in this match. He was the man of the match of that match as well. And I think Indian team was led by Kapil Dev, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
And it was clearly an upset because India was a test playing full nation of full member nation of ICC at that time, and we were an associate nation. And it was, again, as I said, an upset is always a golden memory for the side that
other
won,
team,
right? And for Sri Lanka, this is one of the best wins. You know, Sri Lanka has a very seesaw kind of a ride in World Cup, right? Earlier that we were a bad team. In the 90s, we were the best, right? 2000, like we used to challenge teams like Australia, right? And then now, of course, we had to play the qualifiers to get there, right?
Waiting till the seesaw goes up again.
Up and down, waiting till fingers crossed, right? Okay. Now moving on to number 6. Again, we have chosen a match where Sri Lanka played, but Sri Lanka lost to Kenya in 2003. Now, Kenya wasn't a test playing nation at this time, and Sri Lanka was one of the best
teams with the likes of Vas,
Murali, Jayasuriya, Athapattu, Ashanti Karatna, Mahela Jayawardena, right? And Sri Lanka was one of the favorites in 2002 to win the World Cup, right? So, and Sri Lanka made it to the semis. And Kenya was actually the surprise package in this tournament. In fact, it's worthy of doing a video of the Kenya's journey in 2003 alone.
Maybe if you wanted, drop a comment below.
Of course, if you like to see that, us discussing about the Kenya's journey in 2003. Again, to Kenya, this wasn't just a win, right? Because this win, and they got like free marks from New Zealand because New Zealand abandoned their game against them, and they made it to the Super 6. And they defeated Zimbabwe in Super 6, and they made it to the semi-finals. And that's the only time a team that doesn't have the test status
came up
and made it to the semi-finals in a World Cup, right? So this was absolutely. I remember this us losing to Kenya. I was in grade 7 in school at that time, middle school, and like everyone was like so offended that my God, we lost to Kenya because we were planning. The people were thinking about how are we going to defeat India? How are we going to defeat Australia? And all of a sudden we lost to Kenya, right? And everyone was like so offended.
I mean, now it would be like meh, something.
Whatever, right? Yeah, of course, just another loss. Lost to Scotland, whatever, right? Lost to Kenya. But Kenya's story is actually, it's quite sad because after 2007 their cricket went really downhill. Yeah. And at this point it looked like they were going to rise up as a cricketing giant. It wasn't meant to be. But of course, this is definitely another upset, something that I can personally relate to with my nostalgic memories. Right, moving on to top 5. We are again going back to 1999. So you remember the last match we talked about South Africa losing to Zimbabwe? That was the upset in Group A. In Group B, Pakistan lost to Bangladesh. This was Bangladesh playing their first World Cup. Bangladesh wasn't even a test playing nation at that time. And they lost, surprisingly, Denuga, South Africa won all the matches in Group A, only lost to Zimbabwe. Pakistan won all the matches in Group B, only lost to Bangladesh, right?
And Bangladesh, South Africa being the arch,
the neighbors. The neighbors, and of course the rivalry started. I think Bangladesh was first beefing with Pakistan, then they started beefing with India. Now they are beefing with Sri Lanka, right? The rivalry, it is like it's taking turns, right? Okay. Now, then we are moving to, again, a distance memory, 1992. This is when Sri Lanka won against South Africa, right? So basically South Africa losing to Sri Lanka was an upset at this time because this was South Africa's first World Cup. Because South Africa was banned from international cricket because of their racism issues and all of that. And South Africa made it to semi-finals. They were one of the favorites to win that tournament. And South Africa had to win this match. If they won this match, they would have made it to semi-finals. Sri Lanka had only won one match, that was against Zimbabwe, right? And this was a given to South Africa, and them losing against Sri Lanka was considered as an upset at that time. But the thing is, Sri Lanka's journey in World Cup is quite interesting because 75, 79, 83, 87, 92, all tournaments that we barely won a match and we were knocked out in the group stage, and boom, 96 champions, right? It was like first round, champions, right? So like after this, this win against South Africa showed that Sri Lanka is going to join the big leagues. Right? So again, this is much more than just one win for Sri Lanka. Right, then moving on to top 3. At number 3, we have chosen a World Cup match from 2011. England losing to Ireland. I think this match is memorable for one man,
Kevin O'Brien,
right? Do you remember that match?
Of course, this was the World Cup that I really thoroughly watched, especially since it was in our 3 countries, right? So I thoroughly watched this match, this World Cup, and this was a shocker because this match was played when I was in school, the first half,
right?
And when I was coming home, I was listening in the radio. We didn't have live streaming mobiles back then, right? So I was listening to the radio and I was like, Kevin O'Brien, like, what? Because England's innings were almost over when I started watching, right?
England scored 300.
Yeah, exactly, right? Right, and then I remember my father saying that it's very hard for Ireland to play in these conditions with the heat and all these things because Ireland is not used to this, right? Obviously, right? And he used to tell that they were sweating so much, their faces are so red and all these things and all. I was wondering, how is Ireland playing? I mean, England being the home of cricket, right? And Ireland just won this, and the only name I remember during the match was Kevin O'Brien. Especially, I mean, they had the brothers were playing back then, right?
Niall O'Brien and
the O'Brien brothers, and that's it. Just it was a perfect.
There was like Trent Johnston, Alex Mooney, John Mooney, I think, and Alex Cusack. So basically, England scored 325, something like that.
Yes.
And Ireland, in the first ball, Ireland captain got out in the very first delivery of Ireland's inning for 0, William Porterfield. And I think they lost like 5 wickets for 120 something. Then came Kevin O'Brien's show, right? I remember I used to listen to this radio show in the morning while I drive. And that guy's it's a comedy show in the morning, right? And the day after this match, he said apparently cricket hasn't been taught properly to Irish people. Like they've only taught like how to hit sixers and all. They teach you how to hit sixers and be like, this is how you play cricket, right? So it's of course memorable. At the time, the fastest century scored by
Irish
in the World Cup history,
right?
And even after O'Brien got out, the other players still managed to make sure that they got it sealed. But of course, effect-wise, still the post effect-wise, Ireland still could make it to the the quarterfinals. England still made it to the quarterfinals. So I would say this is an upset, but it didn't cause further upset for the team that lost, right? So, but still, of course, this is one of the most memorable matches in the World Cup history. And if you have seen this live, of course, there's no way you would forget this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
One of the most memorable matches. That's why we chose it as number 3. Now we are going back 4 years to another match where Ireland played. This is in 2007 when Pakistan lost against Ireland. Now this match is unique for several reasons, right? Why would you call this an upset? First of all, this was Ireland's first World Cup, right?
Right.
And Ireland wasn't a test playing nation. Wasn't even, now you see, we looked at another match from 2007. India losing to Bangladesh, but Bangladesh was a test playing nation. Bangladesh had already won a match against Australia the last year, one against Sri Lanka, one against Pakistan. So Bangladesh had Bangladesh wasn't necessarily a small team at that time, right? Although it was an upset. But in this match, Ireland was basically a nothing team, right? They were not playing tests. They hadn't won anything against any nation. and Pakistan losing to them, and in this manner, right? At least in the Bangladesh match, India got all out for like almost 200 runs, and they almost made it close. But in this, I think Pakistan got all out for like 120 something. 133, and Irish just chased that down quite comfortably. They lost a couple of wickets, but they chased that down. And similar to India, this was the last nail in the coffin for them for the World Cup. They got knocked out of the World Cup in 2007, right? And not even that, it went further, and their coach passed away. Coach was murdered in his room, Bob Woolmer, right? And their captain retired, Inzamam-ul-Haq retired. So this was a very bad time for Pakistan cricket, right? So losing to Ireland was one of the worst memories that they would have. But for Ireland, of course, this is when Ireland
most joyful.
This is when Ireland announced themselves to the world, right? So, which is why in 2011, when Kevin O'Brien hit that, it wasn't that surprising because we knew Ireland can be like fighters like that, right? Yes, moving on to our top pick. We picked a match from 1996, again involving Kenya. This is when West Indies lost to Kenya, right? So the reason that we picked this as number one was Kenya was not necessarily a popular team at that time. Again, Kenya's very first World Cup. And
they weren't a test playing nation.
They were a test playing nation. They were never a test playing nation, in fact, right? And West Indies, who made it to the semi-finals, and West Indies happened to be one of those scary teams at that time.
Yeah, because especially with Brian Lara and all these playing.
They had heavy hitters like Lara, they had fast bowlers like Courtney Walsh and Ambrose. And Kenya coming out of nowhere and like pulling this victory off of them was quite surprising at that time. And the world wasn't very familiar with upsets back in the day. In the earlier editions of World Cups, there weren't many upsets.
Because you already knew who was going to win.
Yes, right. So very few, like Sri Lanka defeating South Africa, Sri Lanka defeating India. Apart from that, you hardly have like the underdog winning stories. And this is the first time that the cricket world was shocked. Wait, West Indies lost to Kenya, really, right? So, which is why that we chose this, because I would say this is the beginning of the term causing an upset.
Yeah.
Right. So, and Kenyans fought their hearts out and again announced themselves to the entire world, which is why that they played all the remaining World Cups until 2011. They kept playing, and this is when the Kenyan cricket also started blossoming. So we decided to choose that as number one. Now, just to remind you guys, we are choosing upsets from World Cup cricket, and that's also 50-over World Cups. So we feel like these are the top 10. If you have anything else in mind, let us know in the comments. Also, we have shorts now.
Yes, we have our shorts. So subscribe and comment, give a like on our shorts. You can share your shorts as well.
Yes, and we have our socials, right?
Yes, of course. Follow us on on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as well.
And if you have any ideas for us to do future videos in the future, let us know in the comments. And your opinions, what is the biggest upset you think in the World Cup history? Let us know, and we will see you guys in our next episode.